Welcome, dear listener, to a story that will tug at your heartstrings, provoke your thoughts, and inspire your soul. In this tale of resilience and redemption, we uncover the haunting reality of a young boy trapped not just by his condition, but by the very people meant to protect him. A dedicated nurse, fueled by compassion and an unyielding sense of justice, becomes the boy's beacon of hope, unraveling secrets that challenge the boundaries of morality and courage. Imagine a grand mansion, echoing with silence, yet brimming with secrets, where shadows linger not just in the corners, but in the hearts of its inhabitants. Here, a boy lies in quiet despair, and his nurse dares to challenge the silence, risking everything to save him. This story isn't just about the boy or the nurse. It's about the power of standing up for what is right, even when the odds seem insurmountable. If you find yourself moved by the themes of love, empathy, and courage, please subscribe to our channel and become part of our journey. Share your voice in the comments below with an inspiring thought like, "I believe in the power of compassion to change lives." Your engagement not only supports our work, but spreads the ripple of hope that this story embodies. Ramsey Mansion stood tall on the edge of the town, a monument of grandeur that seemed at odds with the chilling tales whispered by locals. The sprawling estate, once the pride of an affluent family, had become a place shrouded in mystery and unease. Its Gothic architecture, with towering spires and ivy-covered walls, mirrored the shadows of its enigmatic past. Yet, it wasn't just the building's appearance that unnerved people. It was the silence that emanated from within. It was to this mansion that Lana, a dedicated and compassionate nurse, arrived one crisp autumn evening. Hired to care for Dante, a 12-year-old boy who had fallen into a vegetative state, Lana stepped into the mansion with a sense of purpose. She had been briefed on the boy's condition. A rare neurological disorder had rendered him unresponsive to the world around him. However, Lana's instincts whispered that there was more to the story than the medical files revealed. From the moment she entered, the air of the mansion felt oppressive, as though the walls themselves held their breath. The staff avoided eye contact, their hurried movements a testament to an unspoken tension. But it was the family Dante's father, Ryan, and stepmother, Nora, who painted the starkest picture of unease. Ryan, a stoic and seemingly domineering man, appeared cold and detached. Nora, on the other hand, was a bundle of nerves, her eyes darting as though she expected calamity at any moment. Dante lay in a room that was both ornate and cold. His bed was surrounded by medical equipment, but it was the absence of warmth that struck Lana the most. A child's room should speak of life, joy, and innocence, but this one bore no traces of Dante's personality. No toys, no posters, no signs of the boy he might have been. As Lana observed the room, a sense of foreboding settled in her chest. Her first encounter with Dante was heart-wrenching. He lay motionless, his small frame dwarfed by the machinery that kept him alive. His eyes, though open, were unseeing, staring into a void that Lana was determined to reach. She spoke to him softly, her voice carrying the warmth of someone who cared deeply. "Hello, Dante," she began, her tone gentle yet firm. "I'm Lana, and I'm here to take care of you. I'll be your voice, your strength, and your friend." As days turned into weeks, Lana began noticing peculiarities. The mansion's staff whispered in hushed tones when they thought she wasn't listening. Medications prescribed to Dante seemed excessive, even for his condition. And then there were the family dynamics. Ryan's interactions with Dante were perfunctory at best, and Nora, while more involved, appeared overwhelmed and hesitant, as though weighed down by an invisible force. Lana's unease grew when she discovered inconsistencies in Dante's medical records. Dosages didn't align with his needs, and some treatments seemed outright harmful. Her suspicions were further piqued when she found an unmarked vial of medication hidden in the back of a cupboard. Its contents were unfamiliar, and the implications were chilling. Was someone deliberately sabotaging Dante's chance at recovery? The mansion itself seemed to conspire against her. At night, creaks and groans echoed through the halls, and Lana could have sworn she heard faint whispers. But she was not one to be deterred by fear. Her resolve only strengthened as she formed a silent bond with Dante. Though he couldn't speak, His faint responses, a flutter of his eyelids, a twitch of his fingers, were enough to fuel her determination. Her growing connection with Dante made her more attuned to his needs and more suspicious of his circumstances. She began keeping a journal, documenting every irregularity she observed. It became clear to her that Dante's condition wasn't merely the result of a tragic illness. It was being exacerbated, if not caused, by external factors. The question was, who stood to gain from his suffering? One evening, as Lana sat by Dante's bedside, she noticed a single tear escape from the corner of his eye. It was a moment that pierced through the silence and spoke volumes. "I see you, Dante," she whispered, gripping his hand. "And I promise I will uncover the truth." The path ahead was fraught with challenges. Lana knew that the answers lay within the walls of the Ramsey mansion and within the hearts of its inhabitants. But could she unravel the web of secrets before it was too late? As Lana delves deeper into the mysteries of Ramsey Mansion, her bond with Dante strengthens, and the shadowy truths begin to surface. But the real battle lies ahead, a clash of wills and the courage to stand against injustice. What secrets will Lana uncover, and how far will she go to protect a boy who has no voice of his own? Stay with us as the story unfolds. From the moment Lana laid eyes on Dante, something stirred within her, a deep empathy that transcended words. Though he lay silent, his presence was palpable, as if his soul was reaching out to anyone willing to listen. It was this unspoken connection that spurred Lana to go beyond her duty as a nurse. For her, this wasn't just a job. It was a mission to restore dignity and life to a child abandoned by the very people who should have been his greatest advocates. Each day began with a routine that Lana infused with care. She would start by speaking to Dante as though he could respond, describing the morning sunlight streaming through the windows or recounting the chirping of birds in the garden. "Today is a bright day, Dante," she'd say, holding his hand gently. "Even the sun seems to be cheering for you." At first, her efforts seemed futile. Dante's unresponsive state was a formidable barrier, but Lana's persistence began to yield small, miraculous results. One morning, as she massaged his hands, she noticed a faint twitch of his fingers. It was barely perceptible, but it was enough to ignite a spark of hope in her heart. "Dante, I know you're in there," she said, her voice steady but tinged with emotion. "I'm not giving up on you, and I need you to keep fighting too." These small victories became the foundation of their bond. Lana took every subtle movement as a sign that Dante was trying to communicate, and she responded with unwavering encouragement. She began introducing music into their routine, playing soft melodies that seemed to soothe his otherwise tense body. Occasionally, she read aloud from storybooks, choosing tales of heroes who overcame insurmountable odds. But their connection wasn't just about physical care. It was emotional and deeply spiritual. Lana often found herself wondering about Dante's inner world. What did he think? What did he feel? Did he know she was there for him? One day, as she sat by his bedside, she voiced her thoughts. "I wonder what you dream about, Dante. Do you see yourself running in a field or laughing with friends? Whatever it is, hold on to it. Dreams have power, even when the world feels dark." Lana's compassion didn't go unnoticed by the mansion's inhabitants. Nora, despite her nervous demeanor, seemed to be drawn to Lana's optimism. She would often linger in the doorway, watching as Lana spoke to Dante. "Do you really think he can hear you?" Nora asked one day, her voice trembling. Lana turned to her with a gentle but firm expression. "I don't just think it, I know it. Sometimes, all someone needs is for one person to believe in them." This conviction set Lana apart. Where others saw a boy lost in silence, she saw a child yearning for connection. Her dedication began to change the atmosphere in the mansion. The once cold and distant staff grew warmer in their interactions. Even Nora, though hesitant, began to show glimmers of hope. Still, not everyone shared Lana's perspective. Ryan, Dante's father, remained aloof and skeptical. His dismissive attitude frustrated Lana, but she knew better than to confront him directly, at least for now. Instead, she channeled her energy into building a world of care and love around Dante, a fortress of compassion that could shield him from the indifference of others. As weeks turned into months, The bond between Lana and Dante became unshakable. She could sense his moods, his struggles, and his small triumphs. One particularly poignant moment came during a stormy night. Thunder rumbled outside, and the mansion seemed to groan under the weight of the wind. Lana found Dante unusually restless, his fingers twitching more frequently than usual. Sitting beside him, she took his hand in hers. "It's just a storm, Dante," she said softly. "But you and I, we're stronger than that. We've weathered worse storms together." To her astonishment, a tear slipped from the corner of his eye. It was a moment so profound that Lana felt her own tears well up. "You're trying to tell me something, aren't you?" she whispered. "Don't worry, I'll figure it out, I promise." From that day on, Lana became more determined than ever to uncover the truth about Dante's condition. She started researching his medical history with meticulous care, comparing notes and consulting discreetly with specialists outside the mansion. Each step brought her closer to the realization that Dante's silence was not just a result of his illness, it was a cry for help. As their bond deepened, Lana began to see herself not just as a caretaker, but as an advocate. She spoke to him with the conviction of someone who truly believed in his potential. "You're not alone, Dante," she said one evening, her voice steady despite the weight of her emotions. "I'll be your voice until you find yours." Just as Lana begins to uncover the depths of Dante's silent cries, the shadows of the Ramsey family's secrets grow darker. What hidden truths lie behind the unmarked vial of medication? And how will Lana confront the forces threatening Dante's chance at recovery? Stay with us as the journey intensifies. The Ramsey family was a portrait of contradictions. Outwardly, they projected an image of sophistication and unity. Yet beneath the polished exterior lay a web of tension and discord. At the heart of this dissonance was Dante, a boy whose silence spoke louder than any words ever could. The mansion, already steeped in shadows, became the stage for a familial conflict that would challenge the very essence of love and loyalty. From the outset, Lana sensed the unease between Ryan and Nora. Ryan, a man of few words and imposing presence, exuded an air of control that bordered on intimidation. Nora, in contrast, was fragile and anxious, her every move betraying an internal struggle. Their interactions often felt more like battles than conversations, with Dante caught in the crossfire. One morning, as Lana prepared Dante's medication, she overheard an argument between Ryan and Nora in the adjoining room. "You're overthinking this, Nora," Ryan said, his tone sharp. "The doctors know what they're doing. We don't need you playing detective. But what if they're wrong?" Nora's voice trembled, a mixture of fear and frustration. "What if the medication is making him worse? I've read about cases like this, misdiagnoses, over-medication." Ryan's response was curt. "And you think your internet searches make you more qualified than his medical team? Trust the professionals." Lana paused, her heart sinking as she absorbed their words. It was clear that Nora's concerns, though valid, were being dismissed outright. Ryan's unwavering trust in authority clashed with Nora's growing intuition, creating a rift that only deepened with time. As the days passed, Lana began noticing subtle changes in Nora's demeanor. She seemed torn between her role as a stepmother and her instincts to protect Dante. Her frequent visits to Dante's room became opportunities for quiet conversations with Lana, during which she voiced her doubts and fears. "Do you think he's in pain?" Nora asked one evening, her voice barely above a whisper. She stood by the window, staring out into the dark expanse of the estate. Lana chose her words carefully. "It's hard to say, but I believe he's aware on some level, and I think he's fighting." Nora nodded, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I just want to do what's right for him. But Ryan, he won't listen. He thinks I'm being paranoid." Lana placed a reassuring hand on Nora's shoulder. "Sometimes listening to your heart is the most important thing you can do. Dante needs someone to fight for him." This quiet exchange marked a turning point for Nora. She began confiding in Lana more openly, sharing her suspicions about the medication and her fears about Ryan's motivations. While she stopped short of accusing him directly, her words hinted at a deeper mistrust that Lana couldn't ignore. The tension between Ryan and Nora reached a boiling point one evening during dinner. Lana, seated at the far end of the table, tried to remain inconspicuous as the argument unfolded. "I'm just saying we should get a second opinion," Nora said, her voice tinged with desperation. "What's the harm in that?" Ryan slammed his fork down, the sound echoing in the grand dining room. "The harm, Nora, is undermining the professionals who've been treating him for years. Do you have any idea how insulting that is?" "It's not about them," Nora shot back, her voice breaking. "It's about Dante. What if we're missing something? What if there's a way to help him, and we're not doing it?" The silence that followed was deafening. Ryan's face was a mask of controlled fury, while Nora looked like she might collapse under the weight of her own emotions. Lana, though silent, felt the weight of their conflict pressing down on her. After dinner, Lana found Nora sitting alone in the library, her head in her hands. "I can't keep doing this," Nora said, her voice muffled. "He doesn't see what I see. He doesn't feel what I feel." Lana knelt beside her, her voice firm but compassionate. "Then show him. Prove to him that your instincts are right. But more importantly, don't give up on Dante. He needs you now more than ever." In the days that followed, Lana and Nora began working together in quiet defiance of Ryan's authority. They reviewed Dante's medical records, cross-referenced his treatments, and sought advice from trusted specialists. What they uncovered was both alarming and heartbreaking. Several of Dante's medications were unnecessary, and some were even harmful in the long term. But confronting Ryan with this information was no small task. His belief in the system and his own authority left little room for doubt or dissent. It was during one of these confrontations that the cracks in Ryan's facade began to show. "You think you know better than the experts?" he barked at Nora, his voice rising with anger. "You're jeopardizing his treatment with your meddling, and you're jeopardizing his life with your stubbornness." Nora retorted, her voice steady despite her fear. "You may think you're doing what's best, but I won't stand by and let Dante suffer because you refuse to see the truth." Lana watched from the sidelines, her heart pounding. This was a battle of wills, a clash of love and intuition against pride and control. And while Nora's courage was commendable, it was clear that Ryan's resistance was rooted in something deeper, perhaps fear, guilt, or even denial. The emotional toll of these conflicts weighed heavily on everyone, including Lana. She often found herself lying awake at night, questioning her own role in the unfolding drama. Was she overstepping her boundaries, or was she simply doing what was right? One thing was certain: the battle for Dante's well-being was far from over. The mansion, once a symbol of opulence, had become a battlefield of emotions, ethics, and love. And as Lana stood by Dante's side, she knew that the hardest choices were yet to come. As Lana and Nora dig deeper into the truth, they stumble upon a piece of evidence that changes everything: a hidden vial and Dante's personal diaries. What secrets do these hold, and how will they alter the course of the family's future? Stay tuned as the mystery deepens and the stakes rise. In the dim light of the mansion's attic, Lana uncovered a small, unmarked vial hidden behind a stack of dusty books. It wasn't part of Dante's prescribed medication, of that she was certain. The discovery sent a chill down her spine, for it raised a question she had been hesitant to voice. Was Dante's condition being intentionally worsened? The vial itself was inconspicuous, a simple glass container filled with a clear liquid. Yet, its presence in such an unlikely place spoke volumes. Lana's mind raced with possibilities, each more disturbing than the last. Could this be the key to understanding Dante's prolonged silence? Or was it merely a red herring in a house already teeming with secrets? Deciding to act cautiously, Lana slipped the vial into her pocket and returned to Dante's room. He lay as he always did, motionless but somehow still brimming with an unspoken energy that Lana could sense. She sat beside him, holding his hand as if to draw strength from their bond. "Dante," she whispered, "I think we're getting closer to the truth. But I need you to hold on, okay? We're in this together." Her next step was to consult a trusted pharmacist in the nearby town. Under the guise of routine inquiry, she had the contents of the vial analyzed. The results confirmed her worst fears. The substance was a sedative, powerful enough to suppress a patient's responsiveness, but subtle enough to go unnoticed in routine tests. Lana's heart sank as the implications became clear. Someone in the Ramsey household was deliberately keeping Dante in his vegetative state. But why? Was it an act of malice, or was there a twisted sense of justification behind it? Her resolve to uncover the truth only deepened when Nora approached her with an unexpected discovery of her own. While searching through an old chest in Dante's room, Nora had found a set of journals, Dante's diaries from before his illness. Lana and Nora sat together late into the night, poring over the handwritten pages. The diaries painted a picture of a boy who was not only intelligent and introspective, but also deeply troubled. Dante wrote about the growing tension between his parents, the arguments that often escalated into shouting matches, and his fear of being caught in the middle. One entry in particular struck Lana like a bolt of lightning. "I wish I could make everyone happy again. Sometimes I think it's my fault they fight. Maybe if I wasn't here, things would be better." Tears streamed down Nora's face as she read those words aloud. "He thought he was a burden," she said, her voice breaking. "All this time, I thought we were protecting him, but we were the ones hurting him." The diaries also revealed a pattern of escalating conflict in the Ramsey household. Dante wrote about overhearing heated conversations between Ryan and his first wife, conversations that often ended with slammed doors and long silences. The stress of these confrontations seemed to weigh heavily on Dante, who expressed his feelings through poetry and sketches scattered throughout the pages. Among the entries, Lana found a drawing that sent shivers through her. It depicted a shadowy figure standing over a bed, a syringe in hand. The caption read, "The bad dreams always feel real." Lana and Nora exchanged a glance, the gravity of the situation sinking in. The image confirmed what Lana had begun to suspect, that someone in Dante's life had been manipulating his health for their own reasons. But who? And to what end? Their next move was to confront Ryan, though they knew the risks involved. Armed with the diaries and the analysis of the mysterious vial, they approached him in his study. The confrontation was tense, the air thick with unspoken accusations. "Ryan," Nora began, her voice trembling but resolute, "we need to talk about Dante. There are things we've discovered that you need to explain." Ryan looked up from his desk, his expression guarded. "What are you talking about?" Lana stepped forward, placing the vial and the diary on the desk. "This," she said, her tone firm. "And this. Explain them." For a moment, Ryan said nothing. His eyes flicked between the vial and the diary, his jaw tightening. "I don't know what you think you've found," he said finally, his voice cold, "but you're making a mistake." Nora's voice rose, her frustration spilling over. "The mistake was trusting you. Dante's been suffering, and instead of helping him, you've been keeping him like this. Why, Ryan? What could possibly justify this?" Ryan's facade cracked, his voice rising in anger. "You don't understand. Everything I've done was for this family, for him. Do you think it's easy watching your child suffer, knowing there's nothing you can do to fix it? Is that what you tell yourself?" Lana interjected, her voice sharp. "That you're helping him? Because all I see is a boy who's been silenced and a father who refuses to listen." The confrontation ended with Ryan storming out of the room, leaving Lana and Nora more determined than ever to protect Dante. They decided to take their findings to the authorities, knowing it was the only way to ensure his safety. But just as they were preparing to leave, a sudden commotion echoed through the mansion. Staff members rushed past them, their faces pale with fear. Lana's heart raced as she followed the noise to Dante's room, where she found him seizing, his body convulsing violently. Acting quickly, Lana stabilized him as best she could, but the incident left her shaken. It was a stark reminder of how precarious Dante's condition truly was, and how high the stakes had become. As Lana and Nora race against time to save Dante, shocking revelations come to light. Who is truly responsible for his suffering, and what will it take to bring them to justice? The answers lie in a confrontation that will change the course of their lives forever. Stay with us as the tension reaches its breaking point. The storm outside matched the turmoil brewing within Ramsey Mansion. Wind howled through the ancient oak trees, rain lashed against the windows, and thunder rumbled in the distance. Inside, the atmosphere was even more charged, as Lana prepared for what felt like a pivotal moment in her journey with Dante. Dante's condition had grown increasingly unstable after the seizure. Lana had spent hours by his side, monitoring every twitch and breath, her instincts screaming that something was about to change. Nora had joined her, seated quietly in a corner, her eyes red from crying. Together, they were two women united by their love for a boy trapped in silence. That evening, as the storm raged, something extraordinary happened. Dante's hand, which had been limp for months, twitched with deliberate force. Lana, who had been holding his hand, froze in disbelief. "Dante?" she whispered, leaning in closer. For a moment, there was nothing. Then, as if mustering all his strength, Dante's fingers closed around hers in a weak but unmistakable grip. Lana's breath caught in her throat. "Nora!" she called, her voice trembling. "Come here, quickly." Nora rushed to the bedside, her expression a mix of fear and hope. "What is it? What's happening?" "He's responding," Lana said, her voice filled with awe. "Dante's trying to communicate." The next few moments felt like an eternity. Lana spoke to Dante softly, urging him to keep going, to show them he was still fighting. And then it happened. His lips parted and a faint, raspy sound emerged. "Help me." The words were barely audible, but they hit Lana and Nora like a thunderclap. Tears streamed down Nora's face as she clutched Dante's hand. "We're here, Dante. We'll help you. Just hold on." But Dante wasn't finished. Summoning every ounce of strength he had, he whispered a name that sent shivers down their spines. "Police." Lana and Nora exchanged a stunned look. Why would Dante ask for the police? What was he trying to tell them? In the hours that followed, Dante drifted back into unconsciousness, his brief moment of clarity leaving more questions than answers. But his words had ignited a fire in Lana. She knew they couldn't wait any longer. It was time to involve the authorities, no matter the risks. The next morning, Lana contacted Detective Harold Kessler, a seasoned investigator known for his meticulous approach. She shared everything: Dante's deteriorating condition, the unmarked vial, the diaries, and his chilling plea for police intervention. Detective Kessler arrived at the mansion that afternoon, his presence commanding but reassuring. He listened intently as Lana recounted the events leading up to Dante's awakening. "You've done the right thing by calling us," he said. "We'll get to the bottom of this." As the investigation unfolded, the mansion was transformed into a hub of activity. Detectives combed through every room, questioning the staff and examining Dante's medical records. It wasn't long before they discovered a hidden surveillance system installed throughout the house. Cameras that recorded not only the common areas, but also Dante's room. The footage revealed a horrifying truth. Over the past year, Ryan had been tampering with Dante's medications, administering the sedative from the unmarked vial. The recordings also captured heated arguments between Ryan and Nora, during which Ryan accused her of being too soft and insisted that Dante's condition was for the best. The evidence was damning. Ryan was taken into custody that evening, his protests drowned out by the weight of his actions. Nora, though devastated, felt a sense of relief that the truth was finally coming to light. But the revelations didn't end there. Detective Kessler's team uncovered financial documents that painted an even darker picture. Ryan had been siphoning money from Dante's trust fund, using it to cover personal debts and lavish expenses. Keeping Dante incapacitated had been a way to maintain control over the funds without interference. As these truths emerged, Lana couldn't help but feel a mix of anger and sorrow. Dante had been betrayed by the one person who should have been his fiercest protector. But amidst the darkness, there was also light. Dante's courage to speak, even in his weakened state, had set the wheels of justice in motion. That night, Lana sat by Dante's bedside, her heart heavy but hopeful. "You did it, Dante," she whispered, brushing a strand of hair from his forehead. "You told us what we needed to know. Now it's our turn to fight for you." Nora joined her, placing a hand on Dante's shoulder. "I won't let this happen again," she said, her voice steady. "I'll do whatever it takes to make things right." As the storm outside began to subside, a sense of calm settled over the mansion. The road ahead would be long and fraught with challenges, but for the first time in years, there was hope. With Ryan's arrest and the truth exposed, the Ramsey family faces a new chapter 1 of healing, accountability, and redemption. But can Dante truly recover from the trauma he's endured? And what role will Lana and Nora play in his journey toward a brighter future? Stay tuned as the story reaches its emotional climax. The Ramsey mansion, once cloaked in shadows and secrets, now stood as a battleground for truth and redemption. Ryan's arrest had sent shockwaves through the household, unraveling the carefully maintained facade that had shielded the family's darkest truths. But even with him in custody, the scars left behind would take time to heal. Lana remained at Dante's side, her unwavering presence a source of strength for both the boy and Nora. The revelations about Ryan's actions had shaken Nora to her core. The man she thought she knew had betrayed not only her, but the very essence of their family. Yet, amidst the turmoil, she found solace in the bond she had formed with Lana and in the flickering hope that Dante's condition could improve. The days following Ryan's arrest were a flurry of activity. Detectives continued to gather evidence, piecing together the full extent of his crimes. Meanwhile, medical experts reevaluated Dante's treatment plan, adjusting his medications and focusing on his recovery. The mansion, once silent and oppressive, buzzed with the energy of change. But the journey was far from over. The trauma Dante had endured extended beyond his physical state. His diaries and the brief moments of consciousness he had displayed hinted at a deeper psychological wound, one that would require time, patience, and love to heal. One afternoon, as sunlight streamed through the windows of Dante's room, Lana sat beside him, holding his hand as she often did. His eyelids fluttered, and for a brief moment, his gaze seemed to focus on her. "Lana," the word was barely a whisper, but it was enough to make her heart leap. "I'm here, Dante," she said, her voice steady despite the lump in her throat. "You're safe now. No one will hurt you anymore." Tears welled in Dante's eyes as he struggled to speak. "Thank you." Lana's grip on his hand tightened, her own tears falling freely. "You're so brave, Dante. We're all here for you, and we're going to help you get through this." Nora entered the room just in time to witness the exchange. Seeing Dante's faint smile, she felt a surge of emotion, a mixture of guilt, relief, and determination. "We won't let you down," she said softly, taking his other hand. "Not anymore." The emotional weight of the moment was profound, but it also marked a turning point. For the first time in years, Dante's voice, though weak, had broken through the silence. It was a testament to his resilience and a reminder of why Lana and Nora's fight was so important. As the days turned into weeks, progress became evident. Dante began responding more frequently, his movements growing stronger and his words more coherent. His recovery, though slow, was a beacon of hope for everyone involved. Nora threw herself into supporting Dante's healing process, attending therapy sessions to address her own trauma and guilt. She worked tirelessly to rebuild trust with her stepson, often reading aloud from his favorite books or sitting quietly with him as he rested. Meanwhile, Lana became an advocate for Dante's well-being, collaborating with medical professionals and legal advisors to ensure his safety and future. Her efforts extended beyond the mansion, as she began speaking out about the importance of recognizing and addressing abuse, even when it's hidden behind wealth and privilege. The climax of their journey came during a court hearing where Ryan faced charges of fraud, abuse, and endangerment. Nora, armed with newfound strength, took the stand to testify against him. Her voice, though steady, carried the weight of years of pain and betrayal. "I trusted him," she said, her eyes fixed on Ryan. "I believed he was doing what was best for Dante, but I was wrong. He wasn't protecting our family, he was destroying it." Lana, seated in the audience, felt a swell of pride for Nora's courage. The woman who had once been paralyzed by fear was now standing up for what was right, for herself and for Dante. Ryan's defense crumbled under the weight of the evidence. The recordings, the financial documents, and the testimonies painted a damning picture of a man driven by greed and control. He was convicted on all charges, his sentence marking the end of his hold over the Ramsey family. Back at the mansion, the atmosphere began to shift. What had once been a place of sorrow and secrecy became a sanctuary for healing and hope. Dante, though still recovering, began to rediscover his sense of self. His smiles became more frequent. His laughter, though faint, a sound that brought joy to everyone around him. For Lana, the experience was transformative. She had come to Ramsey Mansion as a nurse, but she was leaving as part of a family forged through adversity. Her bond with Dante and Nora was unbreakable, a testament to the power of love, empathy, and perseverance. With justice served and Dante on the path to recovery, the Ramsey family begins to rebuild their lives. But what lessons will they take from their journey? And how will their story inspire others to stand against injustice? Stay with us for the final chapter, where the silence is broken and the power of resilience takes center stage. The Ramsey Mansion, once a silent tomb of sorrow and secrets, had transformed into a haven of healing. Justice had been served, and the chains of manipulation that bound Dante were finally broken. Yet, the journey to recovery was far from over. For Dante, Nora, and Lana, the road ahead required courage, resilience, and an unwavering commitment to love and truth. Dante's recovery, though gradual, was nothing short of remarkable. Freed from the sedatives that had dulled his mind and body, he began to reawaken to the world around him. His first days were marked by small victories, his gaze locking onto familiar faces, his fingers gripping a pencil, his voice breaking through the silence with tentative words. Lana remained by his side, her heart swelling with pride at every milestone he reached. "You're stronger than you know, Dante," she often told him, her voice filled with encouragement. "Keep pushing forward. We're all here for you." Therapists and specialists became regular visitors to the mansion, guiding Dante through physical and speech therapy sessions. Though the work was exhausting, Dante tackled each challenge with quiet determination. He began to express his thoughts and feelings, shedding light on the internal struggles he had endured during his years of silence. "I thought no one could hear me," he said one day during a therapy session. His voice soft but steady, "but I kept hoping someone would try. Then you came, Lana. You heard me." Lana's eyes filled with tears as she hugged him gently. "You're the reason we found the truth, Dante. Your courage changed everything." Nora, too, underwent her own transformation. Attending therapy sessions and support groups, she confronted the guilt and pain that had weighed her down for so long. Slowly, she began to rebuild her relationship with Dante, earning his trust through patience and genuine care. One afternoon, she surprised him with a scrapbook she had been working on, a collection of photos, drawings, and memories that celebrated his journey. As Dante flipped through the pages, his smile grew wider. "You kept these?" he asked, his voice tinged with disbelief. "Of course," Nora replied, her voice trembling with emotion. "You're my family, Dante. I want you to know how much you mean to me." Their bond deepened as they spent more time together, sharing moments of laughter and reflection. Nora's unwavering commitment to Dante's well-being became a cornerstone of their healing process. And for the first time, the mansion felt like a true home. Lana, though deeply connected to Dante and Nora, began to think about her own future. Her time at Ramsey Mansion had been life-changing, but she felt a calling to share their story with the world. With Nora's blessing, she started writing a book detailing the journey they had undertaken, a tale of resilience, justice, and the unbreakable bonds forged through adversity. The book, titled Breaking the Silence, Dante's Story, became a powerful testament to the importance of empathy and courage. It resonated with readers across the globe, inspiring countless individuals to stand up against injustice and advocate for those who couldn't speak for themselves. In the final chapter of their journey, the Ramsey family held a small celebration to mark Dante's progress. Friends, neighbors, and members of the community gathered at the mansion, which now radiated warmth and joy. As Dante stood to address the crowd, a moment that seemed impossible. Just months earlier, he spoke with a clarity and confidence that left everyone in awe. "I want to thank everyone who believed in me," he began, his voice strong and steady. "For a long time I felt trapped and alone, but Lana showed me that even in silence, there's hope. And Nora, you showed me what it means to be loved." Tears flowed freely as Dante continued. This isn't just my story. It's a reminder that we all have the power to make a difference. Sometimes it takes just one person to change everything. As the crowd erupted into applause, Lana and Nora exchanged a look of pride and gratitude. They had come so far, and their bond with Dante was stronger than ever. Dante's story was not just one of survival. It was a lesson in the transformative power of love and empathy. It reminded everyone who heard it that even in the darkest of times, there's always a way to break through the silence and find hope. For Lana, the experience reaffirmed her belief in the importance of standing up for what is right, even when the path is uncertain. For Nora, it was a journey of redemption, proving that it's never too late to make amends and fight for those you love. And for Dante, it was the beginning of a new chapter, a life filled with possibility and promise. If this story moved you as much as it moved us, don't let the message end here. Subscribe to our channel to hear more inspiring stories that remind us of the power of compassion and courage. Leave a comment below with your own thoughts or an inspiring phrase like, "I choose love and empathy to guide my actions." Let's spread this message together. Share this video with someone who might need a little hope today. And remember, your voice can change lives, just like Lana's did for Dante. The events in Stonebridge marked more than just a local victory. They were the spark that lit a nationwide fire. The council's decision to implement James Walker's proposed reforms reverberated far beyond the town's borders, fueling a growing conversation about systemic accountability and the role of law enforcement in modern society. News outlets that had already been covering the story ramped up their focus, framing Stonebridge as a potential model for the rest of the nation. For James, life shifted dramatically. His name became synonymous with resilience and justice, and his phone rang incessantly with calls from activists, journalists, and even lawmakers seeking his perspective. What had begun as a personal fight to restore his dignity was now a full-fledged movement. It was a heavy burden, but one he carried with humility and purpose. Across the country, rallies and town hall meetings sprang up in solidarity. Cities with their own histories of misconduct saw citizens mobilizing, inspired by what had unfolded in Stonebridge. Social media played a critical role, amplifying voices that had long been ignored. Under hashtags like #ReformNow and #JusticeNation, people shared stories, data, and calls to action. Stonebridge's reforms, a mix of independent oversight, mandatory body cameras, and enhanced training, became the blueprint for these movements. As the momentum grew, so did the opposition. Critics accused the movement of vilifying law enforcement, warning that the changes would embolden criminals and demoralize officers. Pundits on certain networks dismissed James as a media-hungry lawyer, while police unions in some cities actively resisted the proposed reforms. James, however, was undeterred. In interviews, he was measured and firm, always steering the conversation back to the core issue. "This isn't about demonizing law enforcement," he repeated in various forums. "It's about creating a system that is fair, transparent, and accountable. A system where good officers thrive and bad actors are held responsible." One of his most powerful appearances came during a televised debate with a former police commissioner. The commissioner argued that oversight committees undermined trust within the ranks and were unnecessary. James countered calmly but decisively. "Trust is earned, not demanded," he said. "And accountability isn't a punishment, it's a safeguard. It protects officers who serve honorably and ensures that communities can place their faith in those who wear the badge. Without accountability, trust is impossible." The debate went viral, further solidifying James as a voice of reason and reform. Meanwhile, in Stonebridge, the reforms began to take root. The Oversight Committee held its first public meeting, drawing both praise and skepticism. Body cameras, once seen as a controversial measure, became an integral part of daily operations for the police department. Training sessions focused on de-escalation and implicit bias were met with mixed reactions from officers, but over time, a noticeable shift began to emerge. Chief Barnes, initially resistant, found himself at a crossroads. The reforms had been imposed despite his objections, but the national attention forced him to reconsider his stance. In a surprising turn, he announced his intention to work collaboratively with the Oversight Committee, stating, "Change isn't easy, but if it's what our community needs, then it's my duty to embrace it." The announcement was met with cautious optimism. James, ever the pragmatist, knew that words were only the first step. Implementation would be the real test. As Stonebridge adapted, its story continued to inspire. Cities like Millbrook and Ravensfield began drafting their own reform measures, citing Stonebridge as a case study. Activists organized conferences to share strategies and build networks, creating a unified front for change. One of the most poignant moments came during a visit James made to a small town in the Midwest. A local woman approached him after his speech, tears streaming down her face. "My son, he was treated like you were," she said, her voice breaking. "But there was no video, no proof, no one believed us. Thank you for fighting for all the people who couldn't." James embraced her, his own eyes glistening. It was moments like this that reminded him why he continued to push forward despite the challenges. The movement wasn't without its setbacks. In some cities, reform stalled due to political gridlock or pushback from entrenched interests. Protests occasionally turned confrontational, drawing criticism and complicating the narrative. But the core of the movement remained steadfast, a commitment to justice, empathy, and accountability. National leaders began to take notice. Congressional hearings on police reform featured testimony from activists, legal experts, and victims of misconduct. James was invited to speak, his words reaching millions as he shared his story and advocated for meaningful change. "Reform isn't about punishing the past," he told the committee. "It's about building a future where trust and fairness are the foundation of every interaction. It's about ensuring that no one, regardless of their background or circumstances, feels powerless in the face of authority." His testimony was met with applause from the audience, but he knew the road ahead remained long and uncertain. Back in Stonebridge, life slowly began to normalize. The police department, once a symbol of abuse, started earning back the trust of its community. Officers who had initially resisted the changes found themselves surprised by the benefits. Greater transparency led to fewer complaints, and better training improved their interactions with the public. James, however, remained a reluctant hero. He returned to his legal practice, taking on cases that aligned with his values and mentoring young lawyers eager to make a difference. The movement he had sparked continued to grow, but he preferred to let others take the lead. One evening, as he walked through the town square, he noticed a mural painted on the side of a building. It depicted a diverse group of people standing together, their faces resolute, with the words "Justice for All" emblazoned above them. At the center was a figure that bore a striking resemblance to him. James chuckled softly, shaking his head. "I didn't do this alone," he murmured. "We all did." What happens when individual voices come together to create systemic change? In the next chapter, we'll explore how the stories of others inspired by James Walker shape a transformative documentary and solidify the movement's legacy. Stay with us. Stonebridge became a symbol of hope, a small town that stood at the crossroads of injustice and chose accountability. But the changes sparked by James Walker's fight were more than surface-level reforms. They were systemic, deliberate, and designed to outlast the momentary spotlight of media attention. What unfolded in the months following the council's vote was nothing short of a transformation, one that extended its impact far beyond the boundaries of Stonebridge itself. The Independent Oversight Committee, one of the most significant reforms, quickly became a cornerstone of trust between the community and law enforcement. Composed of diverse members, including citizens, legal experts, and even former officers, the committee's mission was clear: to review complaints and ensure fair investigations. For the first time, residents felt their grievances wouldn't be dismissed or buried. The committee's first case was a high-profile one, the actions of Officers Carter and Monroe. After a thorough review of the evidence, including the now viral videos and witness testimonies, the committee recommended their dismissal and criminal charges for misconduct. The decision sent a powerful message: no one was above accountability. Both officers were later convicted of charges related to their abuse of power marking a precedent that echoed nationwide. The changes within the Stonebridge Police Department were equally profound. Mandatory body cameras became standard equipment, their footage reviewed regularly to ensure compliance with protocols. Training programs emphasized de-escalation techniques, empathy, and cultural sensitivity, shifting the department's approach from enforcement to community partnership. At first, the reforms faced resistance from within. Some officers, feeling scrutinized and demoralized, voiced their frustrations publicly. "We're being treated like criminals," one officer complained during a town hall meeting. But as time passed, the benefits of the new system became evident. Complaints against officers dropped significantly, while positive interactions between police and residents increased. The body cameras, once seen as intrusive, became tools of protection for officers as much as civilians, providing clear evidence in contentious situations. Chief Barnes, who had initially resisted the changes, became an unlikely ally in their implementation. Watching his department adapt and grow, he began to recognize the value of transparency. "I'll admit, I was wrong," he said during a press conference months later. "These reforms have made us better. They've made me better." Stonebridge's transformation caught the attention of academics, policymakers, and activists. Universities conducted studies on the town's reforms, publishing papers that highlighted their success. The data showed that incidents of misconduct had decreased by 45%, and community trust in law enforcement had risen to its highest levels in decades. The ripple effect of Stonebridge's example was undeniable. Cities across the country adopted similar measures, citing the town as a model for police reform. Some encountered their own struggles with resistance and bureaucracy, but the framework provided by Stonebridge offered a roadmap for navigating those challenges. James Walker, however, remained grounded. Despite the growing recognition, he was reluctant to embrace the role of a public figure. He continued his work as an attorney, quietly taking on cases that aligned with his values and using his expertise to support others in their fights for justice. But his influence couldn't be contained. One day, he received a call from a prominent filmmaker, Rebecca Lane, who was working on a documentary exploring systemic abuse of power. "Your story, James, is the thread that ties this film together," she said. "It's about more than what happened to you. It's about what you inspired." After some hesitation, James agreed to participate. Over several weeks, he shared his experiences on camera, speaking not only about the night of his humiliation, but also about the movement that had grown from it. The film, titled Voices of the Silenced, featured stories from people across the country who had suffered abuses of power yet found strength in their resilience and communities. The documentary premiered to critical acclaim, its emotional and unflinching narrative capturing the hearts of audiences worldwide. James attended the premiere, seated in the back row, content to let others take the spotlight. But when the credits rolled and the applause erupted, Rebecca called him to the stage. As he stood before the crowd, he felt a wave of gratitude, not for the recognition, but for the collective effort that had made this moment possible. "This isn't my story," he said humbly. "It's our story, and it's a story that's still being written." The documentary had an immediate impact, reigniting the national conversation on police reform and inspiring new waves of activism. Schools incorporated segments of it into their civics curricula, fostering discussions about ethics, accountability, and the power of collective action. Back in Stonebridge, the mural depicting James and the community continued to evolve. Local artists added new faces to it, overtime activists, officers who had embraced the reforms, and ordinary citizens who had played a part in the movement. It became a living testament to the town's journey, a visual reminder of what could be achieved when people worked together for a common cause. James often visited the mural, usually in the quiet hours of the morning. He would stand there, hands in his pockets, reflecting on how far they had come. Yet, he never let himself believe the work was done. "Progress isn't a destination," he once told Maya during a conversation in his office. "It's a direction, and we have to keep moving forward." As Stonebridge thrives under its new system, other victims of abuse begin to find their voices. sharing stories that reveal the depth of systemic issues nationwide. In the next chapter, we'll explore how these stories converge to create a transformative wave of change, culminating in a powerful movement that challenges the very fabric of authority. Stay tuned. The reforms in Stonebridge served as a beacon of hope, but they also acted as a catalyst, encouraging others to come forward with their stories. Across the nation, people who had endured abuses of power began to find their voices, emboldened by James Walker's stand against injustice. What had once been isolated whispers of pain and indignation became a collective roar, powerful enough to shake the foundations of complacency and denial. It began with a single story shared on social media, a young man from Millbrook who recounted how he had been unjustly detained during a routine traffic stop. His post, accompanied by grainy footage taken by a passerby, struck a chord. The video showed an officer demanding the man exit his vehicle, despite his calm compliance. The officer's aggression escalated, resulting in the young man being handcuffed and humiliated in front of his younger sister. The post quickly went viral, garnering millions of views and sparking debates in the comments. But more importantly, it encouraged others to share their own experiences. Within days, hashtags like #VoicesHeard and #accountability now began trending, and a wave of testimonials flooded online platforms. Each story added another layer to the narrative, painting a grim picture of systemic issues that stretched far beyond Stonebridge. For James, witnessing this surge of courage was both heartening and humbling. He often found himself scrolling through the posts late into the night, struck by the bravery of those who chose to speak out despite the risk of backlash. He reached out to some of the individuals, offering guidance and support where he could. His office became a hub for organizing efforts, with Maya coordinating meetings and facilitating connections between victims and legal resources. The movement reached a pivotal moment when a coalition of activists decided to document these stories in a more permanent and impactful way. They envisioned a film, one that would weave together the experiences of ordinary people who had faced extraordinary injustices. They called it Voices of the Silenced, inspired by the title of Rebecca Lane's documentary, but expanded to include stories from all corners of the country. James was hesitant to take a leading role in this new project, but the filmmakers insisted. "You're the thread that ties all of this together," Rebecca told him during a brainstorming session. "You're proof that one person's stand can inspire a movement." Over the next several months, James worked closely with the filmmakers, traveling to cities and towns to meet individuals who had been impacted by abuse of power. Their stories were raw and unfiltered, often recounted with tears and trembling voices. A single mother in Chicago described how officers had raided her home by mistake, leaving her children traumatized. A teenager in Houston shared his experience of being falsely accused and detained for a crime he didn't commit, simply because he fit the description. Each story was unique, yet they all shared a common thread: the pain of being dehumanized by those entrusted to protect. But amidst the sorrow, there was also resilience. These individuals had endured unimaginable hardship, yet they found the strength to stand up and demand change. The documentary's production process was grueling but deeply rewarding. James often found himself reflecting on the sheer scope of the issue. "It's overwhelming," he admitted during an interview for the film, "but it's also a reminder of why this work is so important. These stories deserve to be heard. They demand action." As the release date for Voices of the Silenced approached, anticipation grew. The trailer alone became a viral sensation, its powerful imagery and poignant narration striking a chord with millions. The final frame, a quote from James, summed up the documentary's ethos: "When we speak, we reclaim our power. When we listen, we begin to heal." The film's premiere was a momentous occasion, held in a packed theater in New York City and live-streamed to audiences worldwide. James sat in the audience, surrounded by the individuals whose stories had shaped the film. As the credits rolled, there wasn't a dry eye in the room. The applause was deafening, a collective acknowledgement of the courage it took to bring these truths to light. The impact of Voices of the Silenced was immediate and far-reaching. Schools incorporated it into their civics and ethics curricula, sparking meaningful discussions among students. Community organizations used it as a tool for advocacy, hosting screenings followed by panel discussions. Lawmakers referenced it during debates on police reform, using the stories as evidence of the urgent need for change. Back in Stonebridge, the ripple effect of the film was deeply felt. More residents came forward with their own stories, some dating back decades. These accounts, once buried under layers of fear and shame, became the foundation for healing and reconciliation. The mural in the town square expanded again, with new faces and quotes added to honor those who had shared their truths. James, ever the reluctant hero, continued to focus on the work rather than the recognition. The movement isn't about me, he often reminded people. It's about us. Every voice, every story, every step toward a better future. One evening, as he walked through the quiet streets of Stonebridge, he paused in front of the mural. A group of teenagers stood there, pointing at the faces and reading the quotes. One of them turned to James, his eyes wide with recognition. "You're him, aren't you?" the boy asked, awe in his voice. James smiled warmly. "I'm just one of many," he said. The boy nodded thoughtfully. "Well, thanks for, everything." As James walked away, his heart swelled with a quiet pride. The fight was far from over, but moments like these reminded him of what they were fighting for. A world where every voice mattered and every story was honored. What happens when a reluctant hero becomes a symbol of hope for an entire nation? In the next chapter, we'll explore how James Walker's journey inspires unexpected alliances and a wave of legislative reforms that reshape the national conversation on accountability and justice. Stay tuned. James Walker never intended to be a hero. He was a man of principle, deeply rooted in his values, but he had always preferred to work behind the scenes. The events of Stonebridge had thrust him into the national spotlight, a place he neither sought nor particularly enjoyed. Yet, as the movement grew and his story resonated across the nation, James found himself stepping into a role he could not ignore. A reluctant hero whose fight for justice inspired hope and action on a scale he could never have imagined. In the months following the premiere of Voices of the Silenced, James's life became a whirlwind of engagements. Invitations poured in from universities, advocacy groups, and policymakers. He spoke at conferences on systemic reform, participated in panel discussions about ethical leadership, and consulted on proposed legislation aimed at addressing abuses of power. Each appearance was met with standing ovations, his words striking a balance between hard truths and unwavering hope. Despite the accolades, James remained humble, always redirecting the spotlight to the broader movement. "This isn't about me," he would say time and again. "It's about what we can achieve together." His humility only endeared him further to those who followed his journey, solidifying his status as a symbol of resilience and moral courage. One of the most impactful moments of his journey came during a Senate hearing on police reform. James was invited to testify alongside legal experts, activists, and even former officers. The hearing was broadcast live, drawing millions of viewers. As he took his seat, the weight of the moment was not lost on him. He wasn't just representing himself. He was speaking for every individual who had suffered in silence. "Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak today," James began, his voice steady but heartfelt. "I am here not as a legal expert or a public figure, but as a citizen who has witnessed firsthand the consequences of unchecked power. The reforms we discuss today are not abstract concepts. They are lifelines for communities that have endured far too much for far too long." He recounted the events of his now infamous traffic stop, using it as a lens through which to examine systemic issues. But he didn't stop there. He presented data, stories from others, and concrete proposals for change. His testimony was both emotional and analytical, a perfect blend that left even the most skeptical senators nodding in agreement. The hearing resulted in a bipartisan push for reform legislation, with provisions for independent oversight, body cameras, and enhanced training programs modeled after Stonebridge's initiatives. It wasn't a perfect bill. Compromises were inevitable, but it was a monumental step forward. As the bill made its way through Congress, James continued his work on the ground. He traveled to communities still grappling with resistance to change, meeting with local leaders and law enforcement officials to share Stonebridge's experiences. In some places, he encountered open hostility. In others, cautious optimism. But wherever he went, he listened more than he spoke, valuing dialogue over confrontation. James's journey also brought unexpected alliances. One such ally was Chief Barnes, the former head of the Stonebridge Police Department. Initially an adversary, Barnes had undergone his own transformation during the reform process. Together, they began co-facilitating workshops for police departments across the country, bridging the gap between law enforcement and the communities they served. Their unlikely partnership became a powerful symbol of reconciliation and progress. The personal toll of James's journey was significant. His once quiet life was now a series of packed schedules, sleepless nights, and constant media attention. Yet he remained grounded, drawing strength from the stories of those he fought for. Letters from children thanking him for his courage, emails from families sharing how the movement had given them hope. These reminders kept him going. One evening, as James returned home from yet another speaking engagement, he found a letter waiting for him on his desk. It was from Ellie, the young woman who had recorded the video that started it all. "Dear Mr. Walker," it began. "I never imagined that something as simple as pressing record would lead to all of this. You've done more with that moment than I ever thought possible. Thank you for showing me, and so many others, that change is possible. You're not just a hero, you're a reminder that we all have the power to make a difference." James read the letter twice, then folded it carefully and placed it in his desk drawer, alongside other cherished mementos. He didn't see himself as a hero, but Ellie's words reminded him of the responsibility he now carried. The climax of his journey came on the steps of the Capitol, where thousands gathered to celebrate the signing of the National Reform Bill. The crowd was a tapestry of diversity activists, officers, families, students, all united by a shared belief in justice and accountability. James stood among them, content to blend into the sea of faces. But as the ceremony concluded, chants of "James, James" erupted, and the crowd parted to reveal him standing at its center. Reluctantly, he stepped forward, raising his hand to quiet the cheers. "This isn't my victory," he said, his voice carrying over the crowd. "It's ours. Every voice that spoke out, every step taken toward change. This moment belongs to all of us. And though we celebrate today, let us remember that the work is never done. Justice is a journey, not a destination, and together we'll keep moving forward." The applause that followed was deafening, a testament to the profound impact James had made. James Walker's story is a reminder that even in our darkest moments, there is potential for light. What began as an act of humiliation became a catalyst for hope, sparking a movement that reshaped communities and inspired a nation. James never sought to be a hero, but his actions prove that courage, humility, and perseverance can create ripples that transform the world. If this story moved you, take a moment to subscribe to our channel and share it with those who believe in the power of justice and empathy. In the comments, share your own message of hope, something like, "I stand for compassion, justice, and the courage to create change." Let's continue this journey together. Thank you for watching.